Tom had been riding his horse through the cold Montana hills for 3 long days. His back ached from sleeping on the hard ground, and his coffee had run out that morning. The winter had been brutal this year, with storms that knocked down fence posts and left gaps where his cattle could wander off. As the ranch owner, it was his job to fix these problems, even if it meant spending days alone in the wilderness. The sun was getting low in the sky, painting the mountains orange and pink. Tom pulled his hat down over his eyes and guided his horse buck through the rocky path. At 45 years old, he had been running this ranch by himself for almost 3 years now. His wife, Linda, had packed up and left, taking their 12-year-old daughter Amy with her. She said she couldn't handle the loneliness anymore. Couldn't stand being so far from other people. Tom understood why she left, but it still hurt. The ranch house felt empty without Amy's laughter echoing through the rooms, without Linda humming while she cooked dinner. Now it was just him, his horses, and a few hundred head of cattle spread across thousands of acres of Montana grassland, bucks. Ears suddenly perked up and the horse slowed down. Tom looked ahead and saw something that made him frown. There was a tiny orange glow coming from a clearing about 100 yards away. It looked like a campfire, but it was barely flickering. Out here, that could mean trouble, Tom had learned to be careful over the years. Sometimes hikers got lost and panicked. Sometimes people were up to no good. But something about this felt different. The fire was too small, too weak. It looked like it was dying. He clicked his tongue and guided Buck closer, staying alert. As they got nearer, Tom could make out the shape of someone sitting by the fire. The person wasn't moving much, just hunched over like they were trying to stay warm. Tom's heart started beating faster. This didn't look right. When he was about 20 feet away, Tom called out, "Hello there!" "You okay?" No answer. The figure by the fire swayed a little, but didn't look up. Tom quickly got off his horse and tied Buck to a nearby tree. He walked slowly toward the campfire, his boots crunching on the frozen ground. What he saw made his stomach drop. A young woman, maybe in her late 20s, was sitting beside the dying fire. Her dark hair was messy and dirty, and her clothes were torn in several places. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her lips had a bluish tint that Tom recognized as a sign of hypothermia. Miss, can you hear me?" Tom knelt down beside her and gently touched her shoulder. She was ice cold, even through her jacket. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused and glassy. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "So cold." Tom's training from his army days kicked in. He had seen hypothermia before, and he knew this woman was in serious danger. Her body temperature was dropping fast, and without help, she wouldn't make it through the night. He looked around quickly and saw a small backpack and some scattered camping gear. A camera with a long lens was sitting on a rock nearby. This was probably a photographer or hiker who had gotten caught in the weather. The fire pit had some cold ashes and a few unburned sticks, but no real firewood left. "Okay, I'm going to help you," Tom said, speaking clearly and calmly. "My name is Tom. What's your name?" The woman's eyes fluttered. "Riley," she managed to say, "Riley Martinez." "Riley, I need you to stay awake from me, okay? I'm going to get this fire going again and warm you up." Tom stood up and looked around for dry wood. He found some dead branches under a nearby pine tree and quickly gathered an armload. His hands moved fast, building up the fire the way his grandfather had taught him when he was a boy. He arranged the kindling in a small pyramid, then blew gently on the dying embers until they caught. Soon, flames were dancing again, casting warm light on Riley's face, but Tom knew the fire alone wouldn't be enough. Riley was shivering violently now, which was actually a good sign. It meant her body was still fighting the cold. But she needed to get warm fast. Tom went back to Buck and untied his sleeping bag and extra blanket from the saddle. He also grabbed his thermos of soup that he had been saving for dinner. It was still warm. "Riley, I'm going to wrap you in some blankets, okay?" Tom knelt beside her again and carefully wrapped his thick sleeping bag around her shoulders. Then he added his wool blanket on top. Riley was so weak that she couldn't even help hold the blankets in place. Tom opened his thermos and poured some beef soup into the metal cap. He held it to Riley's lips. "Take small sips," he said. This will help warm you up from the inside. Riley drank a little bit of the soup, then a little more. Some color started to return to her cheeks. Tom kept feeding her small sips while he fed more wood to the fire. How long have you been out here? Tom asked, trying to keep Riley talking. 3 days, she whispered. Got lost in the storm, ran out of food yesterday. Tom felt angry at himself. 3 days wasn't that long ago. If he had been checking this area of the ranch earlier, he might have found her sooner. But he had been focused on the damaged fences. On the north side of the property, where were you trying to go? Tom asked. Back to the trail, the main hiking trail. But everything looks the same. Riley's voice was getting a little stronger, but she was still shivering. Tom knew the trail. She meant. It was about 5 miles from here, through some pretty rough country. For someone who didn't know the area well, it would be easy to get turned around, especially in bad weather. As the fire grew stronger, Tom could see Riley more clearly. She had cuts on her hands and face, probably from pushing through thorny bush. Her hiking boots were worn down, and one of them had a hole in the side. She must have been walking for days, trying to find her way back to safety. I'm a photographer, Riley said suddenly, as if she had been reading his thoughts. I came out here to take pictures of the wildlife, bears, elk, that kind of thing, for a magazine. Tom looked at her expensive camera equipment. You came out. Here alone? Riley nodded weakly. I know it was stupid, but I needed to get away from everything. My dad died last month, and I just couldn't handle being around people anymore. Tom felt a pang of understanding. He knew what it was like to want to escape from pain. But the wilderness could be dangerous, especially for someone who wasn't used to it. Well, you're not alone now, Tom said. And you're going to be okay, but we need to get you warmed up properly. Can you move your fingers and toes? Riley wiggled her fingers slowly. My feet feel like blocks of ice, she said. Tom looked at the sky. It was getting dark fast, and the temperature was dropping. He made a quick decision. Riley was too weak to travel tonight, and moving her in the dark could be dangerous. They would have to camp here and wait for morning. Riley, we're going to stay here tonight, Tom said. I'm going to take care of you, but I need you to help me by staying awake and talking to me. Can you do that? Riley nodded. For the first time since he had found her, she almost smiled. Thank you, she whispered. I thought I was going to die out here. Tom felt something stir in his chest that he hadn't felt in a long time. Someone needed him. Someone was counting on him to keep them safe. It had been so long since he had felt useful to another person. You're not going to die, Tom said firmly. Not on my watch. The fire crackled and popped, sending sparks up into the darkening sky. Tom settled in beside Riley, ready to spend the night keeping her warm and safe. He didn't know it yet, but this moment by the dying campfire was about to change both their lives forever. Tom knew he had to keep Riley awake through the night. People with hypothermia could slip into unconsciousness and never wake up. He had seen it happen during his time in the military, and he wasn't going to let it happen to Riley. He built up the fire until it was roaring, then went back to Buck to get more supplies. From his saddlebags, he pulled out a small camping stove, a pot, and some instant coffee. He also had beef jerky, crackers, and a can of beans. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Riley, I'm going to make you something warm to drink, Tom said, setting up the camp stove near the fire. Coffee okay with you? Riley nodded weakly. She was still wrapped in his sleeping bag and blanket, but she had stopped shivering as much. That was a good sign. While the water heated up, Tom gathered more firewood. He found some good-sized logs that would burn for hours. The temperature was dropping fast now that the sun was gone, and he could see his breath in the air. Tell me about your photography, Tom said as he worked. What kind of pictures do you like to take? Riley's voice was quiet but clearer than before. I love taking pictures of animals in their natural habitat. Not zoo animals, but wild ones. Bears fishing. In rivers, elk grazing in meadows, hawks soaring over mountains. Tom smiled as he poured hot coffee into his metal cup. You came to the right place then? This area is full of wildlife? I see bears regularly, and there's a whole family of elk that comes down to the creek about a mile from here. He helped Riley hold the warm cup with both hands. The coffee was strong and black, and she made a face when she tasted it. Sorry, Tom said. I don't have any sugar or cream out here. Cowboy coffee is pretty rough. It's perfect, Riley said, taking another sip. It's warm, and that's all that matters right now. Tom opened the can of beans and heated them up on the camp stove. He also broke up some of his jerky into smaller pieces. Riley ate slowly, but she managed to finish most of what he gave her. I feel like such an idiot, Riley said suddenly. I thought I was being so smart, going off on my own. My editor at the magazine warned me not to hike alone, but I didn't listen. Tom stirred the fire with a stick, sending sparks flying up into the star-filled sky. We all make mistakes. The important thing is that you're okay now. But I'm not okay, Riley said, her voice getting emotional. I haven't been okay for months. Ever since my dad died, I can't seem to get my life back together. I came out here thinking that being alone in nature would somehow fix me. Instead, I almost died. Tom looked at her across the fire. He could see tears in her eyes. What happened to your dad? Riley wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Heart attack. He was only 58. One day he was fine, laughing and telling jokes at Sunday dinner. The next day he was gone. I never got to say goodbye. Tom felt his chest tighten. He knew that kind of sudden loss. I'm sorry, Riley, that's really tough. He was my best friend, Riley continued. He's the one who got me into photography in the first place. He gave me my first camera when I was 12 years old. We used to go on these photo trips together, just the two of us. He taught me everything I know about capturing the perfect shot. Tom added another log to the fire. Sounds like he was a good man. He was. And I feel like I let him down by almost dying out here. He always told me to be careful, to never take unnecessary risks. But I did exactly that. Tom was quiet for a moment, thinking about his own losses. You know, I don't think your dad would want you to feel guilty about this. Parents want their kids to live their lives fully, even if that means taking some risks. Riley looked at him curiously. You sound like you know something about loss. Tom poked at the fire again. My wife left me 3 years ago. Took our daughter with her. Said she couldn't handle the isolation of ranch life anymore. She wanted to move back to the city, be around people, have a normal life. Do you blame her? Tom thought about it. I did at first. I was angry for a long time, but now I understand why she left. This place can be lonely, especially for someone who didn't grow up here. My daughter Amy was only 12 when they left. She's 15 now, and we barely talk anymore. That must be really hard, Riley said softly. It is. I threw myself into work after they left. I convinced myself that if I just kept busy enough, I wouldn't feel the emptiness. But it's always there, you know? The quiet house, the empty dinner table, no one to share the sunset with. Riley pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. Is that why you spend so much time out here checking fences? To avoid going home? Tom was surprised by how perceptive she was. Maybe. I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, probably. Home doesn't feel like home anymore. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the flames dance. The fire was warm and bright, creating a small circle of safety in the vast darkness around them. Tom, Riley said eventually, can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you help me? You could have just called for help on your radio and waited for someone else to come get me. Tom smiled. I don't have a radio with me. And even if I did, help would take hours to get here. You needed help right now, not later. But you don't even know me. For all you know, I could be dangerous. Tom laughed. Lady, you were half frozen and barely conscious when I found you. You weren't exactly a threat. Riley laughed too, and it was the first time Tom had seen her smile. Good point. Besides, Tom continued, my grandfather always taught me that. When you find someone in trouble, you help them. No questions asked. That's just what decent people do. Your grandfather sounds like a wise man. He was. He's the one who taught me everything about ranching. He used to say that the land takes care of those who take care of it, and I think people are the same way. If you take care of others, they'll take care of you when you need it. Riley yawned, and Tom noticed her eyelids were getting heavy. Hey, you need to stay awake for a few more hours. Your body temperature isn't back to normal yet. I know I'm trying, but I'm so tired. Tom stood up and walked over to sit beside her. Here, lean against me. I'll keep you warm and make sure you don't fall asleep. Riley hesitated for a moment, then leaned against Tom's shoulder. He was warm and solid, and she felt safer than she had in days. Tell me about your ranch, Riley said, fighting to keep her eyes open. How long have you been running it? About 15 years. It belonged to my grandfather, then my father, and now me. We raise cattle mostly, but we also have some horses. It's about 10,000 acres, so there's plenty of room for the animals to roam. That sounds peaceful. It can be. But it's also a lot of work. Cattle need to be fed and watered every day. Fences need to be repaired. Equipment breaks down. In the winter, you have to make sure the animals don't freeze. In the summer, you worry about drought and grass fires. Riley was quiet for a moment. Do you ever think about selling it? Moving somewhere easier? Tom shook his head. This land is in my blood. My family has been here for 3 generations. I can't just walk away from that, even if it would be easier. I understand that, Riley said. My dad felt the same way about his auto repair shop. He could have made more money working for someone else, but he loved being his own boss. As the night wore on, Tom kept Riley talking. He told her stories about growing up on the ranch, about his grandfather teaching him to ride horses and rope cattle. Riley told him about her travels as a photographer, the amazing places she had seen and the incredible animals she had photographed. By the time the sun started to rise, Riley was much stronger. Her color had returned to normal, and she was able to sit up without Tom's help. The fire had burned down to glowing coals, but the worst of the cold was over. I think you're going to be okay, Tom said, looking at her carefully. But we need to get you back to my ranch house so you can rest properly and get cleaned up. Riley nodded. I don't know how to thank you, Tom. You saved my life. Tom stood up and started packing his gear. You don't need to thank me. I'm just, glad I found you when I did. As they prepared to leave, both of them felt something had changed during that long night by the fire. They were no longer strangers. They had shared their stories, their pain, and their hope. And somehow, in helping each other through the darkness, they had both found a small light to guide them forward. The ride back to Tom's ranch house took almost 2 hours. Riley sat in front of him on Buck, leaning back against his chest for support. Her legs were still weak, and she felt dizzy whenever she tried to sit up straight. Tom kept one arm around her waist to make sure she didn't fall. You doing okay? Tom asked as they slowly made their way down a rocky slope. Yeah, just tired, Riley replied. And everything hurts. I think I have bruises in places I didn't know could get bruised. Tom chuckled. That's normal after what you've been through. Your body needs time to recover. As they rode, Riley got her first good look at Tom's ranch in the daylight. The land stretched out in all directions, with rolling hills covered in brown grass and scattered pine trees. She could see cattle grazing in the distance and a small herd of horses drinking from a creek. This is beautiful, Riley said, looking around in wonder. How do you get any work done with views like this? You get used to it after a while, Tom said. But you're right, it is pretty spectacular, especially in the evening when the sun sets behind those mountains. The ranch house came into view as they crested a hill. It was a simple, single-story building with a wide front porch and a red metal roof. Smoke was coming from the chimney, which meant the fire in the wood stove was still burning from the night before. Tom helped Riley down from the horse and supported her as they walked to the front door. Inside, the house was warm and cozy, with wood-paneled walls and comfortable furniture. Riley could see family photos on the mantel and children's drawings stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. The guest room is down the hall, Tom said, guiding her to a small bedroom with a single bed and a dresser. You can rest here for as long as you need. The bathroom is right next door. Riley sat down on the bed and immediately felt how soft and comfortable it was compared to sleeping on the ground. "This feels like heaven," she said. Tom brought her a glass of water and some aspirin. "I'll let you get cleaned up and take a nap. When you wake up, I'll make you something to eat." Riley slept for almost 6 hours. When she woke up, she felt much better. Her headache was gone and she didn't feel dizzy anymore. She took a long, hot shower and borrowed some of Tom's clean clothes since her own were torn and dirty. She found Tom in the kitchen, cooking something that smelled amazing. He had changed clothes too and was wearing a clean flannel shirt and jeans. "Feeling better?" he asked, looking up from the stove. "Much better. What are you making? It smells incredible." "Just some chicken soup and fresh bread. Nothing fancy. But it should help you get your strength back." Riley sat down at the kitchen table and watched Tom work. He moved around the kitchen with confidence, like he had been cooking for himself for a long time. She noticed how gentle his hands were as he kneaded the bread dough, the same hands that had saved her life the night before. "I called my editor at the magazine," Riley said. "I told her I was safe, but that I'd be a few days late getting back to Seattle. She was pretty worried about me." Tom ladled soup into 2 bowls and set them on the table. "What did you tell her about what happened?" "Just that I got lost and a local rancher helped me out. I didn't mention that I almost died from hypothermia. She would have freaked out and probably never given me another outdoor assignment." They ate in comfortable silence for a while. The soup was delicious and Riley felt stronger with each spoonful. "Tom," she said eventually, "I want to do something to thank you for saving me. Maybe I could help you with some work around the ranch." "While I'm here," Tom shook his head. "You don't need to do that. You should rest and recover, but I want to help. I feel useless just sitting around. And besides, I've never been on a real working ranch before. It might be interesting." Tom considered this. "Well, I suppose you could help me feed the horses tomorrow morning. It's not too strenuous and you might enjoy meeting them," Riley smiled. "I'd love that." Over the next few days, Riley found herself settling into the rhythm of ranch life. She helped Tom with small tasks like feeding the horses, collecting eggs from the chickens, and organizing tools in the barn. The physical work felt good after months of sitting at a computer editing photos. Tom was patient with her, teaching her how to handle the animals and explaining how everything worked. Riley was a quick learner and seemed genuinely interested in ranch life. "You're a natural at this," Tom said one afternoon as they watched Riley successfully bridle one of the horses. "Most city people are scared of horses." "I love animals," Riley said, stroking the horse's neck. "That's why I became a wildlife photographer. There's something honest about animals. They don't pretend to be something they're not." Tom nodded. "That's exactly right. Horses especially. They can sense if you're nervous or afraid, and they respond to that. But if you're calm and confident, they'll trust you." In the evenings, they would sit on the front porch and talk. Riley told Tom about her travels, showing him some of the photos on her camera. Tom shared stories about his family and the history of the ranch. "My great-grandfather started this place with just a few cows and a lot of hope," Tom said one evening as they watched the sunset. "He built the original house with his own hands, using trees he cut down from that forest over there." Riley looked at the photos on her camera screen. "I took some pictures of you working with the cattle today. You look so at peace out there, like you belong." Tom looked at the photos Riley had taken. In them, he looked confident and capable, surrounded by his animals and the land he loved. "I never thought about it that way, but yeah, I guess I do feel at home out here." "You should be proud of what you've built," Riley said. "This place is like a piece of paradise." Tom was quiet for a moment. "It doesn't feel like paradise when you're alone all the time. Paradise is supposed to be shared with people you care about." Riley felt her heart skip a beat. Was Tom saying what she thought? He was saying, "I know what you mean," she said softly. "I've traveled to some of the most beautiful places in the world, but they all felt empty because I was experiencing them alone." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. Riley felt more relaxed than she had in months. Constant anxiety and sadness that had been her companion since her father's death seemed to have lifted. "Tom," she said suddenly, "I need to tell you something. Being here with you, it's helped me more than you know. I feel like myself again for the first time since Dad died." Tom turned to look at her. "I'm glad to hear that. You seem different than when I first found you, stronger, happier. I am happier. But I'm also scared." "Scared of what?" Riley took a deep breath. "Scared of leaving. Scared of going back to my old life and losing this feeling of peace. Scared of being alone again." Tom reached over and took her hand. "You don't have to be scared. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm just pretending to be okay." "We're all pretending sometimes," Tom said gently. "The trick is to keep pretending until it becomes real." Riley squeezed his hand. "Is that what you've been doing? Pretending to be okay after your wife left?" Tom nodded. "For 3 years, some days are better than others. But having you here, it's reminded me what it feels like to have someone to talk to, someone who understands." "I understand more than you know," Riley said. "I've been running from my pain for months, thinking that if I just kept moving, kept working, I wouldn't have to deal with it. But you can't outrun grief. It follows you everywhere. So what do we do about it?" Riley looked up at the stars. "Maybe we stop running. Maybe we face it together." Tom felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for himself, but for both of them. "I'd like that," he said. "Dad." As the night grew colder, they went inside. But something had changed between them. They weren't just two lonely people who had found each other by accident. They were two people who had discovered that their pain was easier to bear when shared. Riley went to bed that night knowing that her time at the ranch was changing her in ways she hadn't expected. She had come here broken and lost, but she was slowly becoming whole again. And Tom was a big part of that. Healing. Tom lay in his own bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about how empty the house would feel when Riley left. For the first time in 3 years, he wasn't dreading the sunrise. He was looking forward to another day with someone who understood him. Neither of them knew it yet, but they were falling in love. Not the passionate, dramatic kind of love from movies, but something deeper and more real. They were learning to trust again, to hope again, and to believe that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to face the future alone. Riley had been at the ranch for almost 2 weeks when her brother called. She was outside helping Tom fix a broken fence post when her phone rang. The caller ID showed David, and she felt her stomach drop. "I should probably take this," she told Tom, walking away from the fence line. "Riley, thank God," David's voice came through the phone, filled with relief and worry. "I've been trying to reach you for days. Are you okay?" Riley looked back at Tom, who was pretending not to listen while he hammered a new post into the ground. "I'm fine, David. Better than fine, actually. Mom is worried sick. When you didn't come home when you were supposed to, we started calling hospitals. We thought something terrible had happened." Riley felt guilty. She had been so caught up in her new life at the ranch that she hadn't thought about how her family would worry. "I'm sorry. I should have called sooner. I just needed more time." "More time for what?" "Riley, you were supposed to be back in Seattle a week ago. Your editor has been calling the house looking for you." Riley watched Tom work. His movements were confident and sure, like everything he did. She had learned so much about him in the past 2 weeks. How he sang quietly, too. Himself while he worked. How he always checked on the animals one last time before going to bed. How he made her coffee just the way she liked it without her having to ask. "I think I want to stay here a little longer," Riley said quietly. "Stay where?" "Riley, where exactly?" "Are you?" Riley realized she had never told her family the details of what had happened. "I'm at a ranch in Montana. The owner rescued me when I got lost, and I've been recovering here." "A ranch? Riley, you hate the countryside. You always said you could never live anywhere without a Starbucks on every corner." Riley laughed. "I thought I hated it too. But it's different than I expected. It's peaceful here. I feel happy." David was quiet for a moment. "Riley, I'm worried about you." Ever since Dad died, you haven't been yourself. Maybe being isolated like this isn't good for you. I'm not isolated. I'm with Tom. He's the rancher who saved me. Some stranger? Riley, you don't know anything about this guy? He could be dangerous. Riley felt defensive. He's not dangerous. He's kind and gentle, and he saved my life. If he hadn't found me, I would have died out there. That's exactly why I'm coming to get you. I've already booked a flight to Montana. I'll be there tomorrow. Riley felt panic rising in her chest. David, no, you don't understand. I don't want to leave yet. Riley, you're not thinking clearly. You've been through a trauma. You need to come home and get proper help. After David hung up, Riley stood there holding her phone, feeling torn between two worlds. She knew her brother was right about one thing. She wasn't the same person who had left Seattle 2 weeks ago. But she didn't want to go back to being that person. Tom walked over to her, concerned. Everything okay? My brother is coming too. Get me tomorrow. He thinks I'm having some kind of breakdown. Tom's face fell. Are you having a breakdown, I mean? Riley looked into his eyes. I don't know, maybe, but if I am, it's a good kind of breakdown. Like I'm breaking down all the walls I've built up after Dad died. That evening they sat on the porch swing together, not talking much. The silence between them was heavy with things they both wanted to say but didn't know how. I don't want you to go, Tom said finally. Riley's heart started beating faster. I don't want to go either, but maybe your brother is right. Maybe you need to be with your family right now. Riley turned to face him. What if I don't want to be with my family? What if I want to be here with you? Tom took her hand. Riley, you barely know me. 2 weeks ago, you didn't even know I existed. But I feel like I know you better than people I've known for years. Is that crazy? Tom was quiet for a long moment. If it's crazy, then I'm crazy too. Because I feel the same way. They kissed then, soft and gentle, like they had all the time in the world. But they both knew time was running out. The next morning, David arrived in a rental car looking worried and slightly angry. He was tall and thin, wearing a business suit that looked completely out of place on the ranch. You must be the rancher, David said to Tom, not bothering to hide his suspicion. Tom Mitchell, Tom replied, shaking David's hand. Your sister is a remarkable woman. She's been a huge help around here. David looked around at the ranch, clearly not impressed. I'm sure she has. Riley, are you ready to go? I've already changed your flight to this afternoon. Riley felt like she was being pulled in two directions. Part of her wanted to go home, back to her comfortable life in Seattle. But another part of her wanted to stay here forever, helping Tom with the ranch and watching the sunset from the porch every evening. Can I have a few minutes to pack? She asked. Of course. I'll wait in the car. Riley went to the guest room and slowly put her things in her camera bag. Tom appeared in the doorway, looking lost. I know you have to go, he said. But I want you to know that these past 2 weeks have been the best I've had in years. Riley felt tears in her eyes. For me, too. Maybe we can stay in touch? Phone calls, letters? Riley nodded. I'd like that. Tom pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. I wrote down my address and phone number. Call me when you get home, okay? The drive to the airport was quiet. David tried to make conversation about work and their mother, but Riley barely responded. She kept thinking about Tom standing on the porch, watching them drive away. You're in love with him, David said suddenly. Riley was surprised by how direct he was. Is it that obvious? To me, yeah. The question is, do you really love him, or are you just grateful to him for saving your life? Riley thought about this. I don't know, maybe both. Does it matter? It matters if you're thinking about making a life-changing decision based on it. Riley looked out the window at the mountains getting smaller in the distance. What if I am? Then I think you should be really sure about what you're doing. Dad wouldn't want you to make a big decision while you're still grieving. Riley felt fresh tears. Dad would want me to be happy. And I was happy there, David. For the first time since he died, I felt like myself again. But is that because of the place or because of the man? Riley didn't have an answer for that back in Seattle. Riley tried to return to her normal life. She met with her editor, worked on editing photos, and had dinner with friends, but everything felt wrong. The city seemed too loud, too crowded, too fast. She missed the quiet of the ranch, the wide open spaces, the simple rhythm of the days. Most of all, she missed Tom. They talked on the phone every evening. Tom would tell her about his day, about the cattle and the horses, about the weather and the changing seasons.
Riley would tell him about her work, but it all seemed unimportant compared to the life she had glimpsed at the ranch.
"I can't stop thinking about you," Tom said one evening. "I keep expecting to see you in the kitchen in the morning or helping me with the horses. I think about you too," Riley said. "I think about that place. I dream about it." "It's not just a place, Riley. It's a way of life. And it's not easy. The winters are long and cold. The work is hard. There are no fancy restaurants or shopping malls." Riley was quiet for a moment. "Do you think I couldn't handle it?" "I think you could handle anything you set your mind to. But I don't want you to romanticize it. This isn't a vacation. It's real life. Maybe that's exactly what I need, real life." 3 weeks after she left the ranch, Riley made a decision. She called her editor and quit her job. She put her apartment up for rent and bought a plane ticket back to Montana. "Are you sure about this?" her mother asked when Riley told her. "I'm sure that I need to find out," Riley said. "I'm sure that I can't keep living the way I was living. And I'm sure that I've never felt as alive as I did on that ranch." Her mother sighed. "Your father always said you were brave." "Maybe too." "Brave for your own good," Riley smiled. "He also said that life is too short to play it safe." The night before her flight, Riley packed her cameras and a few clothes into 2 suitcases. She was leaving behind most of her possessions, her career, and the life she had built in Seattle. But she wasn't scared. For the first time in months, she felt like she was moving toward something instead of running away from it. She called Tom to tell him she was coming back. "Are you sure?" he asked, and she could hear the hope in his voice. "I'm sure," Riley said. "I want to see if we can build something real together. I want to see if I can make a life there." "It won't be easy," Tom warned. "And I can't promise." "It will work out." "I know," Riley said. "But I can't promise it won't work out either, and that's a chance I'm willing to take." As she hung up the phone, Riley felt something she hadn't felt since her father died. She felt hopeful about the future. She felt like she was finally ready to start living again, instead of just surviving. The next morning, she boarded a plane. Back to Montana, back to the ranch, and back to the man who had saved her life in more ways than one. Tom paced around his kitchen for the 3rd time that morning, checking the clock on the wall. Riley's plane was supposed to land in 2 hours, and he was more nervous than he had been in years. What if she took one look at the ranch and realized she had made a mistake? What if the life he offered wasn't enough for someone who had traveled the world? He had spent the past week cleaning the house from top to bottom, fixing things that had been broken for months, and even buying new curtains for the guest room. Though he hoped Riley wouldn't be sleeping in the guest room for long, the drive to the small regional airport took 45 minutes. Tom arrived early and sat in his truck, watching planes take off and land. When he finally saw Riley walk out of the terminal, carrying 2 suitcases and her camera bag, his heart started beating faster. She looked different than when she had left. More confident, more determined. She was wearing jeans and boots instead of her usual city clothes, and her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. When she spotted him, her face lit up with a smile that made all his nervousness disappear. "You came back?" Tom said, taking her suitcases. "I told you I would," Riley replied, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. "Did you think I was going to change my mind?" "Maybe a little," Tom admitted. "I kept thinking you'd realize you were crazy for giving up your life in Seattle." Riley looked around at the mountains surrounding the small airport. "I didn't give up my life. I came here to start a new one." The drive back to the ranch was filled with comfortable conversation. Riley told Tom about quitting her job and her family's reaction to her decision. Tom updated her on what had happened at the ranch while she was gone. 2 new calves had been born, and he had finally fixed the gate that had been stuck for months. "I have something to show you," Tom said. As they pulled into the ranch yard, he led her to the guest room, which he had transformed into a photography studio. He had installed better lighting and set up a desk where she could edit her photos. On the wall, he had hung some of her pictures that she had printed before leaving. "Tom, this is incredible," Riley said, looking around in amazement. "You did all this for me? I figured if you were going to stay, you'd need a place to work. And I talked to some people in town about photography opportunities. The local newspaper needs someone to cover events, and there's a nature magazine that's always looking for freelance photographers." Riley felt tears in her eyes. "You really thought this through. I wanted you to know that I'm serious about making this work, about making a life together." Riley wrapped her arms around his neck. "I'm serious too. More serious than I've ever been about anything." Over the next few weeks, Riley settled into ranch life with surprising ease. She woke up early to help Tom with the morning chores, spent her days taking photos of the wildlife and landscape, and in the evenings, she would edit her work while Tom did paperwork. She started picking up photography jobs around the area. She photographed a local wedding, took pictures for a real estate company, and even got hired to document a cattle drive for a neighboring ranch. The work was different from what she had done in Seattle, but it felt more meaningful somehow. "I never thought I'd be taking pictures of cows," Riley said one evening as she showed Tom her latest photos. "They're not just cows," Tom said, looking at her pictures. "You made them look majestic, like they're the kings of the prairie," Riley smiled. "I'm learning to see this place through your eyes. Everything here has a story, a purpose." Tom put his arm around her as they sat on the porch swing. "And I'm learning to see it through your eyes, too. You notice things I never paid attention to before, like how the light changes the color of the grass or how the horses play together in the pasture. Their relationship deepened naturally. They worked together during the day and talked for hours in the evenings." Riley learned about Tom's dreams for the ranch, his hopes of making it more sustainable and profitable. Tom learned about Riley's passion for conservation photography and her desire to use her art to help protect wild places. "I want to document what life is really like on a working ranch," Riley said one night. "Show people that ranchers aren't just cowboys from movies. They're people who care about the land and the animals." "That sounds like a great project," Tom said. "And I know just the subject for you to photograph." Tom had been thinking about something for weeks, but he hadn't been sure how to bring it up. Now, with Riley sitting beside him on the porch where they had first kissed, he found the courage. "Riley, I want to call my daughter Katie. I want to tell her about you and maybe invite her to visit." Riley took his hand. "I think that's a wonderful idea. Tell me about her." Tom's face softened. "She's 18 now, smart as a whip and stubborn as a mule. She looks just like her mother, but she has my love for animals. She used to help me with the horses when she was little." "What happened? Why did you stop talking?" Tom sighed. "When Linda left, she was so angry. She told Katie that I chose the ranch over my family. Katie believed her, and she was hurt. Every time I called, she would barely talk to me. Eventually, I stopped trying." "But you never stopped loving her." "Never, but I was scared of being rejected again. It was easier to just not try." Riley squeezed his hand. "Maybe it's time to try again. Maybe she's old enough now to understand your side of the story." Tom nodded. "I think you're right, and I think having you here gives me the courage to reach out." The next day, Tom called Katie. The conversation was awkward at first, but Tom could hear the surprise and maybe even happiness in his daughter's voice. "Dad, is that really you?" "Hi, Katie. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to call and see how you're doing." They talked for almost an hour. Katie was in college now, studying veterinary medicine. She was doing well in her classes and had a part-time job at an animal clinic. Tom told her about Riley and how she had come to live at the ranch. "I'd like to meet her," Katie said. "And I'd like to see the ranch again. I have spring break coming up in a few weeks." When Tom hung up the phone, he had tears in his eyes. "She wants to come visit," he told Riley. "She wants to meet you." Riley felt nervous and excited at the same time. What if she doesn't like me? "She love you," Tom said confidently. How could she not? When Katie arrived, Riley was surprised by how much she looked like Tom. She had his dark hair and serious eyes, but when she smiled, her whole face lit up. So you're the photographer who stole my dad's heart, Katie said, shaking Riley's hand. Actually, I think he stole mine, Riley replied. Katie spent a week at the ranch, and by the end of it, she and Riley had become friends. Katie helped with the photography project, posing with the animals and explaining the technical aspects of ranching. She also helped Riley understand more about Tom's character. He's always been this way, Katie told Riley one evening as they watched Tom work with a sick calf. He puts everyone else's needs before his own. Mom used to get frustrated with him because he would spend all day helping a neighbor fix their fence, then come home exhausted and still have his own work to do. That's one of the things I love about him, Riley said. He has such a good heart. I can see why he loves you too, Katie said. You look at him like he's the most important person in the world. He is to me. On Katie's last day, she pulled Riley aside. I want to thank you for making my dad happy again. I haven't seen him smile this much in years. He makes me happy too, Riley said. Happier than I ever thought possible. 6 months later, Tom and Riley were married in a small ceremony in the clearing where Tom had first found Riley by the dying campfire. Katie was Riley's maid of honor, and a few close friends and neighbors attended. I, Tom, take you, Riley, to be my wife, Tom said, his voice strong and clear. You came into my life when I had given up on happiness. You rekindled the flame in my heart and gave me hope for the future. Riley's vows were simple but heartfelt. I, Riley, take you, Tom, to be my husband. You saved my life in the wilderness. But more than that, you saved my soul. You taught me that love isn't just about finding the right person, but about becoming the right person for someone else. After the ceremony, they danced to country music played by a local band. The stars came out as the sun set behind the mountains, and Riley thought about how different her life was now from a year ago. Any regrets? Tom asked as they slow danced. Riley looked around at the ranch, at Katie laughing with some of the neighbors at the life she had built here. None at all. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. Tom spun her around and Riley laughed with pure joy. She had come to Montana looking for pictures of wild animals, but she had found something much more valuable. She had found a home, a purpose, and a love that would last a lifetime. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Tom and Riley sat by a small campfire, just like the one where their story had begun. The flames danced in the darkness, casting warm light on their faces. We should make a tradition of this, Riley said, snuggling against Tom's side. Every year on our anniversary, we'll come back to this spot and remember how we found each other. Tom kissed the top of her head. I love that idea. And every year, I'll thank God that I decided to ride through this clearing that night, Riley smiled. And I'll thank God that I got lost in the first place.